Hello, everyone. Welcome to our last panel. If you've been following us, it has been a 12-hour virtual event. And our panelists, we're going to start off, we're going to have questions and we're going to translate them in English and Spanish. And then our panelists will have the option of responding in their choice. So it'll either be in English or in Spanish. To start off, we'll ask, this will be kind of the introduction. So, can you give us a background of where you're from and where you work? Puedes darnos un poco de información de dónde eres y dónde trabajas. So, podemos comenzar. We could start with David.
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you guys? So my current title, I'm the assistant baseball coach for the Neumann University baseball team. So I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised down there. Kind of like I had a passion for baseball and sports, and that was kind of like my outlet growing up. So found my way to making the best out of my abilities and opportunities. So decided to play college baseball in the United States. So in my time here playing baseball, meeting people, coaches and stuff like that, they've helped me grow as a person and as a professional as well. And kind of like how I got here is kind of like been a little bit of everything. And being bilingual was one of the biggest influences of me being in the position I'm in today.
Diego, you can answer.
Do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, perfect. There you go, guys. Good evening, everyone. Again, appreciate you guys having me on here. Like I said, my name is Diego Ruiz. I work at Kirkwood Sports Complex. I'm the Associate Director of Operations over there. I also work at Sporting Delaware, a new soccer club based out of the Chase Fieldhouse, and I'm the Sporting Director over there. A little background about myself. I was born and raised in Madrid, Spain, but my family is from Lima, Peru. So parents, grandparents, everybody's from Lima. Somebody asked me where I'm from. Most of the time I say from Peru. So Peruvian descent. The question was how I got myself into the position, correct? Yes. Yep. So on my aspect of it, I started as a soccer coach at a local high school. I was the Newark High School head coach for a couple of years. I connected with the right people that gave me different opportunities in what I love in the sense of the business side and the soccer side as well. So I was able to balance the soccer aspect of it with the business side. Essentially, I started a sports program for kids in 2016, about 5 years ago. Majority Latino kids based, and that kind of opened the door for me for different sports complexes. And like was mentioned before, for me, being bilingual was what opened up all the opportunities for me to kind of do what I do. So definitely blessed, and definitely see it as a huge advantage.
Awesome. So we'll start off with this other question. What is your day like, and how did you get to where you are? So descríbenos tu día a día, and David, you can start off with that.
So it goes around seasons, kind of. So like right now during the season, it's more team stuff, but during the off season, we do a lot of recruiting and visits or tours around school. So the off season kind of goes during the weekends. We go out to recruiting events and stuff like that. We go in Philadelphia, we go to New Jersey, New York, Maryland, all these areas around here. And you kind of like, you see a little bit of everything. You see a lot of teams that are pretty much Hispanics. And you see a little bit of everything. You see some teams that travel from like, let's say Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic. They come over and play. And then that's a good opportunity for me to get to know these kids and see if I can offer them an opportunity to further their education. So that's kind of like on the weekends how it goes. And during those days, after the games, I woke up to them, have a conversation with them, talk to them about a little bit of everything, what are their academic goals or athletic aspirations, and just having a friendly conversation, asking them about where they're from, about their families and stuff like that. So that kind of gives you a better idea of them getting to know you, and you getting to know them as well. Because like the way we like to see stuff in our program. It's everything. It's the player, it's the families, it's everyone who's involved in the process of getting here. Once we go during visits, we pretty much we have had a conversation multiple times. We bring him over on a visit around school, walk him around school, kind of explain what are how the dailies of being baseball players in a program is. Then we just walk them around buildings, explaining stuff. For example, how the study hall works like, how baseball practice work like, what are some of the outlets that they have on campus as well. And a lot of the time it's very important for Hispanic families to know that, just because like a lot of them, like for example, about 2 months ago, we had a kid whose family is from Venezuela. They came around 2 years ago from Venezuela. So both parents did not speak English. So the kid spoke English, but both parents didn't. So it was very important for them to understand, like have someone that they can trust and can relay the information to the parents and for the kid as well. So, and for also it's that way they feel comfortable. So, because sometimes a lot of the times, English being your second language is a little bit hard to like, how to explain yourself. And so the message doesn't get mixed up or something like that. Cause like it happens a lot. And me being that person for those individuals and that come across me and our program, it's for us, it's important for them to, how do I say it? Say how they feel without getting anything mixed up. So that's kind of how it goes in the off season. We run practices as well. And once we're in season, it's just more practice stuff, and we do some visits here and there, but pretty much what we do is we draw up practice plans and stuff like that. We work on lifts, we work on daily tasks with our guys and stuff like that, and having regular conversations. At the end of the day, I think we're working with humans, people who have problems. We don't see them as only baseball players. It's way more than that. And for those kids who doesn't like their first language is not English, it's very important for me and for us for them to have someone who they can express themselves however they feel comfortable with. And a lot of that, and sometimes in the heat of the emotion, the games and stuff like that, stuff doesn't come out as you would like to. And the heat of the moment, like it's really hard to get your words out. But if you have someone you can speak in your first language, is very important.
Yeah. So for mine, I guess it's really changed in the last few years. I started at Kirkwood in 2013. And again, like for me, it was there was a small opportunity or a small opening for something to try to start something different. And just based on the program that I started, which was called Liga Unida, which was for kids, majority, like I said, majority were Latin descent. I think we started with around 300 kids and went about to, I think the most we had was around 800. And most of them, again, in our area, we have a lot of Mexican descent. So majority was that, but from all different types of countries. So just going back, and I'm just thinking back how I guess the position has changed as the years have progressed. In the beginning, it was a lot of, like was just said, having that confidence and having that trust in the community, being out there doing local events, doing charity work, going to the LACC, which is the Latin Community Center, volunteering, doing a lot of, I'm a coach as well, so doing training sessions to the community. But like was said, it was in the beginning, especially, it was a lot of building that trust, and the language is very important with our community, just because, just for my example, English is my second language, and my parents, my mother and father, don't speak English. So whenever we would need to do something, I would go with them to translate. And I still remember all these vivid memories. So for when we started the program, we had a lot of families just come in, sometimes a little like shy. And once they see a Spanish speaker, they're able to be a little bit more comfortable and express themselves a little better. So again, in the beginning years, it was a lot of face-to-face, a lot of building that trust with the community, a lot of just getting to know people, the right local leaders and different things like that. As the years have transitioned, my position has transitioned a lot. So now what I do a lot is the marketing and business side of the sports complex. So I kind of handle a lot. We're a 14-field sports complex in Delaware. So we rent our facilities a lot to big local events or big tournaments from different states. We're big on the soccer side, but we're in the lacrosse side, the field hockey side, trying to get into different sports as well. So now it's more managing and overseeing that part of it and overseeing the team of people we have. But like was said on the bilingual part and everything like that, that is something that I still oversee and have other people kind of helping with that. But the day-to-day has changed as the years have gone on, but being bilingual, regardless of what situation or what position I'm at, has been a huge benefit. And like was said again, a lot of things with the community is that trust factor, and having that language and being able to communicate with them, just even explaining it firsthand from what I've had to experience in my childhood and different things like that is a huge benefit. And sports is a big part. It's just, a melting pot of different people, and being able to express yourself is a great way to kind of build in those relationships and things like that.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned when you were younger you would translate, because I think we can all relate to that, like being 5 years old and going with your grandma and being that translation. My next question is, how did you learn Spanish, and was it your first language? ¿Cómo aprendiste español y si fue tu primer idioma?
So Spanish is my first language, so I kind of learned it as growing up. But how I learned English, it's just for growing up in Puerto Rico, you have to take classes. You have to take English and you have to take Spanish all throughout your school, from elementary school to all the way to high school. So my biggest thing, it's something that I wanted to learn, because I think I saw it at my whole life. My parents taught me this is something that is going to help you at the long run. And they were not wrong. I mean, growing up, I used to think I knew it all, but nah, growing up, seeing years later, I think they were right. But yeah, so a lot of things is obviously it's not enough with anything. Like, what if you go show up to school and you do this and then you just pay attention to class? It's not enough. For me, I did learn a lot of my learning watching movies and listening to music. When I would watch a movie, I started by putting the movie in Spanish and putting English subtitles. And then I kind of graduated myself into, all right, let me watch the movie in English and put Spanish subtitles. And then let me put the movies in English and with English subtitles. And to the point where I kind of still use subtitles a little bit, just in certain moments. But then that's how I kind of learned how to listen and understand it and not to think too much about it. And then having family here in the United States also helped me, because I would travel in the summers and just not being afraid of making mistakes. I mean, when growing up, I would try to order for myself food, and then just learn. I mean, that's the only way to go. You're going to make mistakes. And I think that's the best way to do it. Even though when I first came to college, I thought I was pretty good in English, but picking up some accents and stuff like that was a little tough for me in the beginning. I thought people spoke really fast, and I was kind of a little lost. But then obviously the more you're around it, the better you're going to get at it. But yeah, that's how I kind of learned English.
So I'll try to switch it up a little bit and see if I can translate in English and Spanish, but I'll start with English. So for me, it was the same thing as was said. English is my second language. When my parents immigrated here, with a lot of different immigrants, they came here for better opportunities, different opportunities for me and my younger brothers. And the language barrier for me was really tough, just in the sense that both my parents didn't speak it. And my parents worked in jobs that were predominantly with a lot of different Hispanics and Latinos and things like that. So weren't really forced to learn the language. So I have very, very vivid memories on the process of learning. So I was sometimes, my dad worked crazy hours, and he worked I was a mushroom picker, and he would, I think, get home sometimes 5 o'clock, leave home 2, 3 in the morning, get home at 5. We'd be ready with our book bags, and he would take us to the LACC, which is the Latin American Community Center, which is now kind of full circle because I do a lot of volunteer work, and I kind of get to sit at the same table with a lot of people that helped me learn the language. But he would drive me tired. I would get there, and I would have instructors that every single day, 5 days a week, after my classes in kindergarten, preschool, whatever, they would be there helping me learn the language. So for me, it was just awesome because there was a lot of a lot of help out there and a lot of different opportunities that my parents were able to connect me with. But they also knew that they kind of needed to get outside help, if that makes sense. They weren't really able to kind of assist me in that process of learning. But for me, it was a lot of practice, repetition, like he said as well, watching movies and different things like that with the subtitles and any little thing that could help. But it was kind of like a great way to help out and have that community center. I still know for me, that's why I do a lot of like help over there. I think they made a big difference in my life. So to put in Spanish quickly, para mí el inglés es mi segundo idioma. Cuando era más pequeño, me acuerdo muy claramente que mis padres trabajaban bastantes horas. Cut off for a second. Trabajaban bastante, pero sacaban tiempo para llevarme a un centro latino donde me enseñaban el idioma de inglés. Entonces tenía bastante apoyo de diferente gente para enseñarme el idioma y diferentes conexiones y diferente gente que han sido muy importante en mi vida. Entonces, con repetición, viendo películas, diferentes cosas que me han ayudado a aprender el idioma mejor, ha sido algo que ha crecido bastante y mucha gente que han estado en el camino. Entonces, yeah, it was a great to just have all these different connections essentially to help me through the process of learning the language.
Awesome. So we'll go with our fourth question. How has it been knowing two languages in your job? And do you use Spanish often? ¿Cómo ha sido saber dos idiomas en tu trabajo? Y si usas el español a menudo. David, if you want to start us with that.
Yeah, so it's like I said earlier, it's very beneficial in the sense that, like I said, when I go in recruiting and stuff like that. But it's interesting. My first coaching job in college baseball, it was kind of went about the other coaches that were there saw me as a tool as well, in the sense that they can use for me speaking Spanish. We had two kids that were from Panama, and they saw me as like, all right, there was a language barrier kind of there. So they kind of saw me as an opportunity to be able to kind of relay information, and on top of that, use me as a baseball resource as well. But yeah, I mean, right now we have a lot of Latin kids. They all speak really good English. So right now we don't use it as much. But I do use it a lot during recruiting. Like when I talk to kids over the phone, when I talk to parents as well on visits and stuff like that. It's a really important tool, just because like we said earlier, the trust factor kind of like, so there's no like some stuff gets lost in between the lines and stuff like that. So it's very clear the information we're trying to give, because like it's a big important decision where kids are trying to pursue their careers, who are they going to be the people who's going to be around them. So to me, yeah, so it's a tool that I use pretty often during recruiting season.
For me, now I guess in the new position at Kirkwood and Sporting, not really. I don't really have to use the language that much, just because of it's not really many Hispanic or Spanish-based people that we speak with on that side of things right now. But like I mentioned, the kind of side project and the side program that I have with the kids and the community and things like that, we're expanding that into the adult side. And probably 90% of the conversations are in Spanish. So half my day when I'm focused on that project, it is pretty much completely in Spanish. Most of the families, Spanish is their first language and only language they speak. So the cool thing is that it is definitely the communicating part, but just even on social media and things like that, like let's say our Facebook and Instagram, like we translate everything in Spanish. So it's just like little things like that Spanish is kind of used in an everyday in that sports side of it, on that side of things. So yeah, it's a huge benefit. It's a huge plus, especially just being able to see what, I guess in my point, like the state of Delaware and the state of Northern Delaware kind of needs. Just knowing the language and be able to communicate and expressing yourself in that language has been huge. So yeah, use it fairly often every day. So it's been great.
Okay, so we have one more panelist that just came on, Alexis. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Perfect. So can you give us a little background of yourself really quick?
Yeah. Hey, sorry guys that I'm late. I had some technical difficulties. So my background, I'm originally the U.S. I was born here, Delaware. But I grew up in Mexico. I lived there for 6 years. From El Estado de Morelos. I grew up there, and then when I was 6 years old, I moved back to the States. Um, and ever since then, I've been involved in soccer. So, a little bit of what I've done right now is I'm the founder of Delaware City FC, which is a brand new soccer club formed in Delaware. Um, I mostly work with Hispanic kids. Majority of them are Guatemalan and Mexican. But there's other ethnicities in there too. Um, but yeah, that's what I do. I come from Mexico, but I am originally from here. So I will say English is my first language and Spanish is my second language. But being bilingual definitely it helps me a lot in the sports industry and in the sports world that I'm in, especially in the area that I'm located at, because the population of people that play soccer is mostly Hispanic. So I get to be in the community a lot.
Okay, thank you. And we just want to remind those who are watching from home or from work, you can leave a question in the Q&A. Si están viendo en su casa o en el trabajo, pueden dejarnos una pregunta y lo vamos a contestar. The next question, have there been times in which knowing both languages haven't helped you? ¿Ha habido ocasiones en que conocer ambos idiomas no te ha ayudado?
So kind of. It's just sometimes in the moments where there's a where how do I put it? I'm thinking in Spanish, and kind of like when I get a little bit lost in the word sometimes, it's a little like I find myself thinking too much, I think, and I start looking for the exact correct word or whatever that fits in the moment. That's about it, I think. Also, like a lot of times it happened to me where people say like, all right, you're speaking too fast. And in my mind, I was like, well, I don't think I am, but it's just the way I speak Spanish, and I speak pretty. They say I speak really fast in Spanish, but sometimes I don't see it or think about it. And I just talk. But it's sometimes where trying to get across a message that I want to, but sometimes for some reason in my mind or something, I can't get it across as I would like. And that's about it. Other than that, I think being bilingual, the benefits are way more than the what can you say, the flaws or something like that. Or it's just sometimes it's only a thing, mental thing sometimes, I guess, that happens.
I guess for me, I can't really pick of any disadvantages or anything like that. I think one of the biggest things is when I got into the sports side and the soccer side here in Delaware, I feel like I was probably one of the only ones Latin coaches around. So let's say there was a family that needed translating, or we wanted to put some information in a different language, it'd always kind of be like one person. So sometimes it got a little overwhelming because it was we had at a point 600-700 kids, so their families, and there's one person at that time. But I think the cool thing is kind of as I've been able to progress in the position, one of my big things was try to bring more Latino coaches on board. So we have, a few great, about 4 or 5 great ones. So it's cool because we're able to kind of balance the different responsibilities and translate. And it's also great to have Marlon on board on the sporting sides because he's able to help a lot of families on that side as well. But no, in disadvantages, like was just said, there's definitely, I see it as a huge advantage, and it's definitely a huge plus.
Alexis, if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't think there's really any disadvantages here for being bilingual. I just think sometimes, as David had said, it can get a little difficult because, like I said, me growing up in the United States but moving to Mexico, I got to learn both languages. And I grew up in a household speaking Spanish, but when I went to school, I spoke English. So sometimes, for example, I'll be with a kid that just got here from Mexico or Guatemala or a Latin American country, and my Spanish isn't, the greatest because I'm also from here. So it's not so much that it's a downfall, but that's where I could say maybe I have a little bit of a disadvantage sometimes, is that I'm not, dominantly just a Spanish speaker or an English speaker. I speak both languages. And sometimes it's like you don't perfect yourself in just one language, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean that there's a downfall to it, because obviously being bilingual is great because you get to speak to, both people. But at the same time, sometimes, like I said, I'll speak to somebody in Spanish, and it's not that my Spanish is horrible, but it's also not the very best because that's not my strongest language, if that makes sense. But yeah, as far as disadvantages and where, as far as I work, I don't see any. I haven't really had any. But I could see where you can have some difficulty sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely know what you're talking about, Alexis. So Alexis kind of answered the question for me before I asked it. So I'll ask it to David and Diego. And the question is, do you ever transition into a more professional Spanish? If so, when and where? Eh, ¿Alguna vez ha hecho la transición en su español más profesional? Si sí, ¿cuándo y dónde?
So yeah, obvious, for sure. Obviously doing visits a lot. I try to use more professional Spanish. Obviously just the way, I think that's how it should be. Either whether it's Spanish or English. Sometimes it's you have to change a little bit as well. Trying to use more general words, especially when you, like for example, I'm from Puerto Rico and Diego, his family's from Peru, and he's from Peru, and Alexis from Mexico. So there's some words sometimes that change. For example, like what means the word that I use for oranges might not be the same word they use in Peru or in Mexico or Venezuela or stuff like that. So that's where kind of like stuff kind of gets mixed a little bit. And then also like a little bit of the slang that I use as Puerto Rican they might not understand what I'm trying to say when I say that. So I try to keep a lot of this stuff pretty professional, pretty simple, and kind of like general words that we can all understand in the same language. It's crazy as that sounds. We're speaking the same language, but stuff changes for some reason, depending upon where we come from. But I think that's kind of like where I try to use more of a general. And if they don't understand, I try to explain that, hey, this is what I mean when I say this. This is what we say in my country. And then we learn from each other a lot. Like in Puerto Rico, we say habichuelas for beans, and then South America they say frijoles. And it's just little things like that. It's just stuff you pick on and learn on. And yeah, I think I do switch to a more professional. And obviously, when we're on a baseball field, try and keep it as fun and as light as possible. We're just trying to have fun when we're doing practice or during games, trying to make it have a nice, easy environment.
Yeah, pretty similar. For me, same thing. I guess it depends if we're talking or I'm talking to, I guess you would call them like a customer or a participant in the program when it's work related. I try to keep it as professional as I can. And the language as well is a little bit different on my side. I work with majority Mexican descent families, and the Spanish is different in different words and things like that in the Peruvian side of things. But just like if it's in English or Spanish or any other language, I guess when I'm comfortable and with friends and things like that, it can be a little bit, I guess, more like slang or more comfortable with the language. But when I have, when it's work related or different things like that, I guess with the English and the Spanish, it comes out a little bit more professional for sure.
Yeah, I think, like you guys said, sometimes we get a little bit, it can be a difficult speaking to certain people because of the way that they say things in Spanish. Like David had said, we say things differently, like Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Mexicans. Everything that we say, we could have the same meaning, but we'll say it in a different way. But I don't have too much difficulties. It's like David and And Diego said, when you try to speak to these people, you try to keep it as simple as you can. Obviously, I don't know some of the words they say sometimes, and they might not know mine because my Spanish is going to be different than theirs. But you try to keep the thing simple because usually the simple words you can use with any Spanish. But with that being said, yeah, that's probably the most difficult thing that we can have, and it doesn't get very difficult. But yeah, you can have a little hiccup here and there.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. For our next question, can you elaborate? Wait, are we on that? Yeah. Can you elaborate on the opportunities within the sport industry while knowing two languages? I know we kind of like touched on that a little bit. ¿Puede explicar las oportunidades dentro de la industria de deporte mientras conoce dos idiomas? So, like, besides the jobs that you guys have, like, ¿qué otra oportunidades habrá?
Yeah, for sure. I
Really
think.
quick, sorry for cutting you off. You can
Sorry.
switch it up in Spanish too.
Okay, I'll do this one in Spanish. Pues como la industria del deporte en muchos países latinoamericanos va creciendo, muchas veces en los países latinos, el deporte es una forma de salir sea, de pobreza o para conseguir nuevas oportunidades y superarse. Y muchas veces, como muchos inmigrantes de otros países viajan de sus países hacia Estados Unidos para buscar mejores oportunidades, lo mismo pasa en los deportes. Por ejemplo, en el béisbol, en República Dominicana, en Puerto Rico, Venezuela, México, en muchos países. El béisbol es un deporte que ha crecido mucho y se ha convertido bastante mundial. Lo mismo que en el fútbol. El fútbol es un deporte que es mundial. Se juega en Europa, se juega en Latinoamérica, se juega en Estados Unidos, en Asia, en todos lados se juega. Sobre el deporte es una oportunidad para crecer y sigue creciendo. Y para nosotros que estamos aquí en los Estados Unidos, en conocer ambos idiomas te da una oportunidad, te da una ventaja sobre muchas personas que no pueden comunicarse con otras personas o no pueden identificarse o no entienden la cultura o no entienden muchas cosas. So, una persona que es bilingüe le da una ventaja súper grande al ver cómo la industria del deporte aquí en los Estados Unidos sigue creciendo. Y nada, como dije, el deporte en muchos de estos países latinoamericanos es una forma de salir y superarse. Like I just said, the sports in Latin America, a lot of the times is a way of growing and sometimes getting a way of out of poverty. So like, for example, in baseball, you see a lot of kids in the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Venezuela, where there are some, like, it's poor. Some people, some areas are poor. So they see the sport as a way out of poverty or a way to better themselves and try to get out of their situation. So as sports continue to grow in the United States, and like I said, like as immigrants sometimes come from different countries just in job opportunities, so they're looking for the same things in sports. So being bilingual gives you that advantage, like we said earlier, of being able to communicate and identify yourself with those people and just diving to their culture and getting to know them.
I'll do the same thing he did. So, sí, como estaba diciendo, yo creo que es la misma cosa que, bueno, en Estados Unidos es un país de inmigrantes, de gente de todos diferentes países y en el centro en las culturas y los países que hablan español sigue creciendo cada día. Entonces, creo que es bien importante saber los dos idiomas y te abre bastantes oportunidades. No solamente en el fútbol, el béisbol, hay bastante diferentes cosas. Entonces, más ahorita como que estamos pasando ahorita en el mundo con la pandemia y COVID y todas esas cosas, deportes es una de las únicas cosas que está pasando ahorita. Entonces, mucha gente está buscando para ese acceso a esos deportes y esas cosas. Entonces, sabiendo el idioma y sabiendo poder comunicarte con esa audiencia de gente es muy importante. Entonces, poder ser bilingüe y poder comunicarte con gente de diferentes países te abre bastantes oportunidades. Entonces, igualmente, hay bastantes cosas en todos los deportes, en cada cosa, y yo creo que sabiendo el español te como he dicho, te abre las oportunidades. Entonces, very similar to what was just said. I think that just knowing English and Spanish, it opens up a lot of different opportunities, not just, I guess, in my sector, mostly the soccer side. I think the U.S. is a melting pot of different cultures, different ethnicities, and the Spanish speaker and the of Latin descent is growing every single day. So there's more population and more people that want to do sports. Being able to dominate both languages or even express yourself, even for people that aren't completely dominant in the language, just being able to communicate yourself with the community and different people opens up different opportunities for yourself as well. Not just, like I said, on the soccer side, there's many different sports that are growing in popularity. Basketball, football, volleyball, all these different sports. So I think that the main thing is just you being able to express yourself and you being able to communicate with those different sports and those different families is a huge plus. So yeah, for sure.
La ventaja que yo veo de ser bilingüe es de que, como dijo David y Diego, puedes estar en las dos culturas, pudiendo hablar inglés y en español. Es bueno porque en una manera tú eres el que está en medio de las dos culturas y puedes unirlos. Por ejemplo, para mí, yo sé con Diego, con lo que él ha hecho en Kirkwood, hay un big gap entre la comunidad hispana y la comunidad de, white people and African American people. Y entonces, muchas veces, no hay nadie en ese gap que pueda unirlos, pero unos siendo bilingüe como nosotros, que podemos hablar inglés y español, tenemos la oportunidad de unir a las dos culturas, que sea, peruano, mexicano, guatemalteco, puertorriqueño, right? Y unirlos con las otras culturas para hacer algo mejor y más grande. Esa es la ventaja que yo veo de ser bilingüe, es como digo, de poder unir las culturas. As I just said in Spanish, the advantage that I see on my end as far as being bilingual is that sometimes there's a gap or like a barrier between the Hispanic community and, the white and African American community. And it's seen a lot. And Diego, as I was growing up, I saw Diego do it at Kirkwood. I saw him do the Liga Unida, and I was very interested in that because he was bringing in all the Hispanic guys to really get into the Kirkwood soccer club. And down where we're from, I've always seen, there's the Hispanic guys, they stay off to their side, and the other guys stay off to their side. Now, me being bilingual and being able to speak both languages, I'm taking advantage of it myself by being able to talk to both sides and try to unite them to do something bigger and better, which is why I started Delaware City. Our team is made up of Hispanic guys and white guys and guys from everywhere. I mean, it's a very diverse team. But like I said, that's the advantage that I see in being bilingual, and it opens up more opportunities in the sports world for people. So yeah, that's what I have for you guys.
Awesome, thanks, guys. So it's no secret that, I mean, we've all been there, that the Hispanic population usually is more of a low income, because that's just how it is. Our families come from all over the place, and sometimes they struggle to get jobs and things like that. So, do you think there should be more programs for low income families, especially like when they're trying to play travel ball? Like, we know how expensive youth sports can be, especially in America. So if you guys want to touch on that, Diego, I know you work with Kirkwood and Sporting, so you probably have a little bit more knowledge on that.
Yeah, do you want me to start? Yeah, so to be fair, like that is, and it's cool to hear Alexis say that, because I think this is like the first time we've even like met and things like that. So for me, my biggest reason that I got into the soccer side of it was that so I coached at Newark High School, at a local high school, and I got to see, I guess, a lot of kids that were in my similar situation. So, like I said, my parents, very hardworking, labor jobs, and I wanted to play on essentially the travel team at Kirkwood, and my parents didn't have the finances to do that, and thankfully, I was able to connect with good people that had, good positions, and it was able to essentially to be sponsored to play. But essentially, when I got it to Newark, I felt like I saw 40, 50 Diegos that needed somebody kind of to look after them. And then the passion and the reason I started Liga Unida in a few years ago was because I wanted to see if I could do the same thing that I was trying to do at Newark High School, at a high school level, at a state level. So that's when it was great to see, because we were able to have 600-700 kids, and like Alexis was saying, was bridge that gap and bridge them to these different opportunities that sometimes I at the time didn't have those connections to the big colleges, to the Division I schools. And now what's crazy is that they're a phone call or a text away to be able to connect these kids to these opportunities. So for me, one of the big things was giving them those scholarships or sponsorships. And I'll give you an example. At Kirkwood, when it was strictly Kirkwood that we were sending the kids to, and now even sporting, in a year, we probably gave $70,000 to $80,000 worth of scholarship money to these kids. And to be honest, maybe 80% of them were Latino descent. And then at sporting, I know with Steve and BPG and Buccini and all them, they're doing a great job as well to continue in that process when there's kids that have the talent and sometimes don't have the financial resources to be able to help them out to kind of like fulfill that dream and continue their playing and that way. But yeah, like you were saying, Marlon, I think this is important, and these conversations happen when like-minded people get together and try to come up with better ideas to give more opportunities. So yeah, I think it's just getting connected and trying to have more opportunities and more scholarships and sponsorships for these kids to be able to play.
Yeah, some like Diego said, it's crazy just because a lot of the time these travel programs, whether it's baseball, I don't know how soccer or other sports work. Like I know in travel baseball, I see a lot of this stuff like it's a business. And it's really crazy how people, some coaches, some business owners and stuff like that, just they say things and they try to sell you a product when in reality it's not true. I think a lot of it has to do with people thinking some people have good intentions when they don't. And at the end of the day, they're trying to collect a paycheck or check just to get their business going. And I think one thing I've learned, and obviously I was part of it as well. I went to those travel organizations when I thought something was going to happen and it didn't, and stuff like that. And I think a lot of it has to with finding a way to educate people. And it's like like Diego said, my dream goal is to open my own baseball academy down in Puerto Rico and help kids. And it's something I try to do now too. Every kid I come across, I try to give him a little bit of information how stuff really works. How does it work to get into college? And I think the other thing is just the tools we have around ourselves. I think we have a phone nowadays. Like sometimes it's just a phone call away, an email away, or text away from getting your opportunity. And social media, especially now during COVID, it's been a huge tool to recruiting and finding opportunities. So I think a lot of it falls into educating and sense of, and it's hard when you have someone to educate you in that topic, but it's just kind of like doing your homework. Like we always talk about, I think this is like the sport itself, like for kids, for example, that are trying to pursue their athletic aspirations or academic aspirations. The sport, like one day you're not going to play anymore. Like one day your cleats, your glove, everything's going to go to the shelf. And I think learning and reading and trying to do that stuff, extra stuff that's going to help you at the end of the day, find that, make that correct decision and that place where you want to go. It's just find them for them. Because I learned. I luckily had someone who can guide me in that way of reading and finding people who try and get the information. And a lot of the information is out there, and I think there's a lot of good people out there that really genuinely want to help people. I think it's just using the tools we have to the best of our abilities. And because you see it all the time, you see people who have nothing and they become great. It's just, I think it just falls into making the best out of your situation. And that's what I can say. I mean, it's tough just because, like I said earlier, there's a lot of people who paint you this pretty picture when it's not. And I think honesty and education, educating yourself on the topic, it's very, very important for kids to making their decisions into whether they do travel ball or college or professional.
Yeah. So as far as the topic that, we're discussing right now, I mean, Marlon knows, and Diego, I just heard what you said, and David, I heard what you said. I can relate to Mar and Diego a little bit more here because I feel like we were almost in the same spot. And Marlon obviously grew up down south in southern Delaware, where I grew up. I probably grew up about 30 minutes away from him, but I grew up in the same predicament. I didn't, I grew up playing in the street. I grew up playing street soccer. I didn't know what organized soccer was until I got to middle school. And I went to go try out for a travel team, and I found out I made the team. And then when I made it, the coach gave me a paper and said, look, this is how much it's going to cost for you to be on the team. I couldn't afford it. I tell my kids this story all the time. And the coach was blowing my phone up that he wanted me to play. And I couldn't afford it. My dad was working a full-time job during when the economy crashed. And he was a single father. I grew up in a single parent household, and he just couldn't afford it. He couldn't afford for me to play. Luckily, I got offered a scholarship with the club. This was Delaware Union back then. And I got to play. I know I just heard Diego say he was in a similar position, but it's like he said, the reason I'm doing this program and I'm doing Delaware City is to offer these kids something that I wish I had when I was growing up. Because when I look around over here, we don't have enough of that. We don't have enough of these programs where they go out to these low income kids and they can offer them something where like David touched on earlier, something that could take them out of poverty. I mean, if you look at Southern Delaware soccer, it's different from upstate, but I can't tell you how many kids going on and go and play college. Out of like the 300, 400 kids we have, it might be like one or two. And that's sad. It's very sad because there's very talented kids here. And I know we spoke about this earlier, and David touched on it. Like, soccer is to most of our people, it's a way out of poverty. And I always tell my kids, go to school, go play college ball, get an education out of it, and use your soccer abilities to help you. But it's like I said, sometimes, as a parent, as a Hispanic parent, you look at these clubs and you're like, wow, like I got to pay this much money a month for my kid to play. And then on top of that, I got to pay all my bills and I got to pay everything. And to some people, it doesn't seem like much but to some people it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's something that they just can't afford. So with that being said, that's why I started what I'm doing now, which is Delaware City. We're trying to form a premier soccer club down south. But at the same time, give these kids an affordable program, where they don't have to, if their parents are struggling, they can come to the club and we can offer them a scholarship and we can help them out, and this is where being bilingual comes into play, because a lot of the times as a parent, you go to one of these bigger clubs in the area and you're dealing with people you can't speak with. Right. And in my case, I speak both languages. So when a parent comes to me, I'm also very well known in my community. They come to me, but they can speak to me in Spanish, and they can be comfortable with speaking with me in Spanish because I can speak the language. Whereas sometimes they can't go to a club because the the person that's running the club or the people working there, they don't speak Spanish. And that's another problem down here. We don't have enough Hispanic coaches. I know Diego just said Kirkwood, they have 4 or 5, and that's great. I know a couple of the guys there. But if you look down south, we don't have Hispanic coaches. And that's a problem. And that's why like I said, this is why we're doing it. We're doing it to change the culture. We're doing it to help these kids that the Hispanic community, don't get me wrong. I'm not just saying we're only helping the Hispanic community, but it's a big part because I've seen it happen. And like Diego said, that's why he did La Liga Unida, where our people do get left out sometimes because of the barrier of the languages. And yeah, I mean, like Marlon said, there should be a way for these kids to be able to play if they have the talent. You know, I 100% believe that, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But that's what I have for that. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, thank you. So we have roughly like 3 minutes. So this will be the last question. Can you give tips and advice? Well, what are some tips and advice that you can give to those who want to learn a new language? Puedes dar consejos y sugerencias que para aquellos que quieren aprender un nuevo idioma. So whoever could just pick that up.
Yeah, one of you guys want to answer because we have like 2 minutes left. 3 minutes.
All right, well, I'll try to go quick. So like I said earlier, some of the tips we talked about was like watching movies and stuff like that, reading, listening to music. It's a pretty simple stuff you can do. But I think the other part of it is diving to the culture. I think learning culture is awesome, like overall, whether it's Latino, European, American, it's awesome. I think that's one of the greatest things that you see in sports as well. It's a melting pot, and just, I don't know, learning other perspective. It's awesome. I think it opens you so many doors, and just to meeting new people overall, meet them as humans. It's just a great thing. And you can talk to each other and talk about perspectives on how this works for you. How does this work for you? And I think just learning as many languages as possible, it's just a great thing, just as of talking to other people and getting to know them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just follow up quickly. Just practice as much as you can. Be comfortable speaking to native Spanish speakers. I think I have a lot of my quote unquote American friends that have come with me to Peru. Like he said, expanding into the culture and just diving in and not being shy or embarrassed, because at least I do, and I'm sure I can speak for everybody on here. We love when people practice and try, and it's a great way to kind of get more comfortable with the language.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, for me, all I gotta say is, if you do want to learn a new language, and this is just based off experience, go to a different country and experience it. Like I said, I grew up in Mexico, and I came back and didn't know any English, and I came back and I learned. I'm going to Germany in a couple months. Hopefully I pick up some German, but go experience a different culture and learn the language. That's all I can say for that. And like David said, watch movies with subtitles in that language, and yeah, and hang around with people that of the language that you want to learn in the culture.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys a lot. Really appreciate you guys. I know it's late, 9:55. You guys took time out of your day. Couldn't thank you guys enough. You guys were also the first panelists for the bilingual panelists in Neumann sport management history. So
thank you.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. David, Alexis, Diego, much love, brothers.
Thank you, guys, and congrats.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. You guys did a great job. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.